Hello and welcome back to this episode of CXO Cafe, a series of learning interactions with CIOs on various aspects of digital collaboration. I'm Anil Chopra, VP Research and Consulting at CyberMedia Research and your host for this episode. Now, this episode is all about remote building remote teams, which is another crucial aspect of enabling seamless collaboration amongst employees. Now, you remember the office times where you could simply walk up to a colleague's seat if you had to discuss something important, or when your boss would call you for a quick huddle in his cabin to discuss another important aspect, or even those casual walks, and talks over a coffee or smoke break with a colleague, which actually turned out to be quite productive. In fact, a lot of people would get all their innovative ideas from such informal discussions. Unfortunately, all that sounds like a distant memory now, something we used to do more than 1.5 years ago. Today, it's all about doing everything remotely from homes over a video call and other collaboration tools. But of course, we can't keep sitting and fretting over things that we can't do anymore. It's time to look forward to things we can do for building a more resilient remote work culture. It's more about building remote teams that are all charged up with the right technologies, tools, and motivated to perform. To discuss this in more detail, we have with us Sachin Jain, CIO and CISO, Evaluser, which is a leading provider of proprietary solutions and specialist services for research, analytics, and data management. Sachin is a visionary and strategic technology leader. He has over 20 years of executive and hands-on experience in automating medium to large global enterprises. He is also the winner of several awards for innovative ideas, business impact, and transformations. Besides being a passionate learner and explorer of business and technology, Sachin also fancies sports, music, and fitness. Welcome to CXO Cafe, Sachin.
Thanks, Anil. Pleasure to be here.
Sachin, we are all going through the most challenging yet interesting times of our lives, with the definition of office having changed overnight. Now, work from home has become the norm. Video conferencing and virtual collaboration have become a way of life. All of us have had our own interesting experiences during these tough times. What were some of your own most unforgettable experiences during this pandemic, maybe with your employees, with your teams, and your customers?
Yeah, no, thanks, Anil. This absolutely the pandemic has left many memories, and as you rightly put forward, there were a lot of scenes in the office which we miss, and all the casual talks. Even the innovation aside, at times you need to de-stress yourself, and that's where you get into some casual discussion and just start exploring what is happening. And it's not just about work, but there are a lot of things which you learn for improving your personality, improving your attitude towards a lot of things, and that's what I think we all miss. And when this pandemic started, I think the first 6 months, I think for most of the organizations around were very, very reactive. And people were just thinking that that this will end maybe next few months and they will go back to normal. And that's where they were just taking this as an independent event, and which probably maybe another disruptive event as people have faced in parts over the past few years. But the scale was different. This was global scale, but still people were assuming that this will get over soon. And when this thing's prolonged, and I think what I can see, maybe the first 1 year of pandemic, the first 6 months in that year were mostly reactive and filled with a lot of hopes. But the next 6 months, people realize that this is not going to get over soon. And that's where they need to start planning to figure out what do we do to sustain, and what to do to live in that new normal. And this is not going to get over soon. And what are the different things they need to do to become agile, to become flexible, and to remain productive in that environment. And I think remote working, especially if we talk about our industry, we all have experienced, and we always had like maybe 10 to 15% or maybe more people working from home or remote locations, but we never saw this kind of a scale where more than 90% of our people were working from home. At one point in time, we actually had that 100% workforce working from home. And even today, if you look at our global workforce, which is over 4,000 people, most of them are working from home. And if I look at from a technology perspective, I think we did not face much of the challenge because we were ready to deal with such scenarios. And we had certain events which were not of the global scale, but some regional events, for example, something happening in South America or something happening in India, which was leading to some disruption of business. We all were prepared and we kept doing a lot of testings. But obviously this kind of a scale, which left, I think, a long-term impact now in terms of how do you deal with such scenarios. I think that preparedness, how do you basically help people both technologically, mentally, physically, emotionally, how do you help people to survive and sustain through these times? I think some of these things will remain in our memories and will probably maybe whenever we design something to come out from a disruption and all the business continuity planning, I think we'll have all aspects as we keep talking about whether it's people, process, and technology. I think everything will come to a bigger play.
Yes, I agree. 100% of the team, would have been working from home. There was a time when that also situation had happened. But speaking of teams, how big a team do you work with, and what were the biggest difficulties in keeping them together, working together in this pandemic?
Yeah, I'll maybe probably give you a bit of an overview that how we have worked. If you talk about specifically about the technology team, we have about 70 people globally who work from different locations. Majority of them are in India because we maintain our core infrastructure in India. And out of over 4,000 people, we have close to about 23 or 2,400 people in India from our operations perspective. And the rest of the folks are spread across China, Europe, US, and South America. And since this pandemic had the global impact, we literally had everybody working from home. And as I said, the first 6 months were mostly reactive, and people were just trying to live with that situation. And everybody was hoping that maybe it will be sooner when we get back to office. And people was putting sort of timeline that maybe they will be in office again after a couple of months or maybe 3 months. And that's where I think people were preparing to return to office, not preparing to live with it. And this was, I think, a very usual phenomena, what I was experiencing with some of my friends also, and they were also doing the same thing. And the other thing, what happened, if I talk from a people perspective, and I can talk about myself also, I think the usual office timings, what people used to live with, if they were, let's say, going to office at 8 o'clock and returning from work at 5 o'clock, or whatever, let's say 9 to 6 or 8 to 5 kind of a job environment. I think that thing has gone away, and that went away in the initial phase of pandemic. And I think if we look at now, that thing has gone completely. And one thing what people were experiencing, that the productivity went up, and there was no compromise with the efficiency, because people were more productive, and they were able to finish their work well in time. And especially for our industry, like the professional services, we also did not face any issue with respect to client deliveries. And collaboration obviously played an important role, but eventually, from a work point of view, I think there was no issue. But yeah, people started feeling burnout. People started feeling that they are not able to discuss their problems as and when they want. I mean, as you rightly said in the beginning, in the office setting, you can walk up to somebody. If you have a problem, you can just quickly go and discuss. You don't have to book an appointment with that person. most of the time. And today, if let's say if you want to talk to somebody, you don't know whether he or she is busy in some call or not. And that's where I think some of these restrictions came in play. But overall, I think from a work point of view, there was no issue. But I think stress, whether it's emotional or mental stress, or due to maybe I think working for over hours, I think some of those things played heavily on people. And that's where our HR team and admin team who organize multiple activities to keep employees engaged with the company, with the brand, and with other folks, so that at least we know other folks are around. And that's what the confidence you get when you're inside the office.
Thanks. Yeah, you're right. I mean, office timings have increased, and while productivity would have gone up, but office timing has increased. And as you rightly said, working from home can lead to a lot of stress, frustration, demotivation. Employees can vent it out with other colleagues over, coffee, which isn't possible at home. So how did you really address this with your team in terms of, I'm sure you also faced it with your team. How did you really address, some of these issues?
So I'll say a big thank you to our employee engagement teams, and it was a joint effort between various teams to actually look at the activities which can keep employees healthy, mentally, physically, and as I said, it's the belongingness for the brand. And when you're working from home, and I felt that personally, I actually have always worked in an office setting. And even at Evaluserve, I spent more than 19 years in India sitting inside an office. And last 1.5 years, I've been working from home. So I can now feel the pain of people who work independently and how they need that belongingness very badly. That I belong to a company who has a big brand, and obviously I've seen all the offices and all kind of office settings, but people who are joining new and working from remote setting. And these days, last 1.5 years, we have all the joinings remotely, and people would not have gone through some of the orientations physically. Obviously virtual orientations are happening, but when you join a company, you go into an office setting, you learn a lot of things about that brand, and there are obviously trainings and team discussions and that brainstorming, the project meetings, client meetings. There's so many things which happen, and everything when it turns to virtual. Though you are probably maybe able to connect with video and collaboration tool, which has become the norm now, but in the initial phase, I know there were a lot of people who were not very video savvy, you can say. They were hesitant to come on video, and audio calls were fine. And even discussing everything on audio calls was something a lot of people were feeling little restrictive. And they need to open up and then start discussing. And that's where I think some of these activities to break that ice, to make them realize that this is going to stay, but you need to stay strong. And that's where, whether it's maybe to do something, let's say with yoga, meditation, and I think maybe some classes to show your potential, how good a cook you are, or maybe showing some talent, but just to keep them engaged and de-stress, I think was very, very important for everybody, so that employees remain healthy and remain productive. And even if somebody was getting infected, then how we are caring for that person, and especially during second wave, I think hats off to everybody on the ground. They actually took really good care of everybody, and they ensured, despite facing a lot of challenges around with the healthcare infrastructure, our teams tried to get the best healthcare possible for people who were getting infected and people who are struggling for themselves or maybe for their families or their loved ones.
Thanks. Great to hear that how you have taken care and how eValueServe has taken care of its employees during these stressful times. Now, as you rightly said, in last 1.5 years, all new employees have joined from home. So basically, video conferencing has, now is a way of life in today's environment. But at the same time, it's not enough. What other collaboration tools do you think have become essential for teams to enable them to, maximize their efficiency while they're working remotely?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and I'll tell you a bit of a context before moving forward. Just before pandemic, we were doing some campaigns enterprise wide for people to start adopting collaboration tools. And obviously, we did not have any situation like a pandemic in mind, but we wanted people to adopt these tools more and more. I mean, even for example, the tool which we are using right now, Microsoft Teams, the power of such collaboration tools was much beyond the regular chat or finding somebody online or just to figure out whether he or she is busy or maybe looking at the contact information. And I know many people were not using it beyond the regular chat or maybe a voice call. And we were doing those campaigns and we were finding it very hard. And we were looking at some of the timelines which were a little extended for everybody to start adopting these collaboration tools so that it can cut down on a lot of things like maybe the document repository, document sharing, working together, and managing multiple versions of a document. There were so many things. But when this pandemic happened, we actually did not run any campaign during that time. And eventually, to our surprise, and everybody in the technology team was also surprised that people actually started adopting very fast. And I know some people who were feeling a little shy before pandemic and they were the tough nuts to crack in terms of adoption. And they started becoming an advocate for adoption of these tools. And they were telling everybody around, look, this tool is very powerful and you should start using it. And as I said, to our surprise, there were many folks who actually started discovering some of the great features. And in fact, there were some features which we were also not campaigning about. And they started discovering. And that's what I think we love about some of these technology platforms, which people start adopting. And I think it's just a mindset. And as I used to tell a lot of people around that, look, whenever there's some app, even as simple as, let's say, WhatsApp in your phone, nobody gives you a training for that. And you learn and discover all the features. Now, since this is a personal app, probably maybe your mind is tuned to learn that way. But when there's something which happens in enterprise setting, you always look for somebody who will come and give you a training, or maybe tells you how to run this application, or what are the great features, what are the do's and don'ts. And during the pandemic, I think everybody started finding the ways to learn it quickly. And it's not just restricted to just audio and video conferences, which is probably making meeting more productive, but how to create multiple channels, how to create document sharing, how to basically, and not just a simple sharing, because we as an organization, we also give a lot of importance for security. People started discovering that how to classify information, how do you put permissions on certain documents, and how do you collaborate internally and externally, what are the different ways. And I think in last 1.5 years, I think from a collaboration point of view, I think everybody, all the global teams have become sort of an expert. And this is a thing which actually helped us to survive as well. because collaboration is the key when you are working independently from your home. That's where this thing, the collaboration is actually a key.
Yeah, thanks. You're right. I mean, collaboration is absolutely key, and it's great to hear that the team, despite you, besides you're doing the campaigning, that there were people who were actually learning things on their own and actually spreading the word and awareness about tools and telling people how to use them even better. So it's very encouraging to actually hear that such a thing happened. Now let's kind of move beyond tools and look at go beyond tools and technologies. What else do you think is essential for building successful remote teams? Maybe in terms of the processes, more discipline, work culture, and so on.
Yeah, no, I think the one thing which is very important is to keep the employee engaged, and as some of the points we have already discussed, you need to constantly be with the person and understand what that person is going through, both physically, emotionally, and what are the challenges people are facing. Because as I said, in the office setting, I think when people are spending 9-10 hours in office, it's very easy to go through that live, and you can probably maybe figure out what maybe a person is going through, and you can obviously fall back on each other. But when you're working independently, you probably don't know what is happening. And beside work, most of the time, I think we don't get time to figure out what the person might be going through. And it's not just, I think with the time we have started, we also learned and we also started creating various processes. I mean, for example, our office had come out with maybe various things. For example, maybe giving extended leaves, or maybe somebody who has run out with medical leaves. Then office obviously added some extra leave to support maybe his own illness, or maybe some issue in the family during this tough times. And as I said, I think one of the thing what I've also personally experienced, and I've seen with a lot of friends around, and a lot of CXO friends around, I think the emotional stress was the biggest challenge during, especially during the second wave in India, and overall. I think this second wave left probably the biggest impact, especially if we put that in Indian context. I think almost everybody had some of the issue of that, maybe not in their direct immediate family, but in extended families, relatives, friends. I think that emotional stress was playing big. And when you were losing somebody you knew very well, or maybe, and in many cases, I personally had cases where I spoke to somebody like maybe a couple of days back, and then after 2 days, I'm hearing that that person is no more. And that plays actually very a stressful thought in your mind, that what will happen? Life is uncertain. I mean, all we know. But when these things are happening so fast in front of your eyes, that puts a lot of emotional stress. And that's where I think, as an organization, as leaders, I think everybody has to step in and figure out how do you basically handhold your team. How do you look for options around? How do you create that productive and uh, and maybe strong environment where people know that I'm working in an environment where I'm taken care of, my needs are taken care of, and that person knows that if something happens, yeah, there is somebody I can fall back on. And I think that thought is very important for everybody to realize. And that's where we as an organization succeed. And everybody knows, I mean, every organization, I mean, obviously process technologies are obviously are important, but people actually make great organization. And if you can take care of them, obviously that's the best bet you can go for.
Right. I mean, people make up an organization, and if the organization helps the people, then people also help the organization. It works in both ways. Um, and yes, I mean, these are extraordinary times, and this is the time then when people have to stand with each other and support them. And glad to hear that eValue Survey is doing everything it can for its employees. Now, with everything becoming virtual, reliance on IT has increased like never before. So what sort of a transformation does an IT department and the IT infrastructure really has to undergo to support the organization on this physical to virtual journey?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question, and this is what I've been advocating personally, both within the organization and outside the organization in the community. And we were one of the first few companies who adopted cloud at very early stage. We went for the virtualization at very early stage, and we went through the transformation quite early in even in our professional journey, and that's what I can say was the biggest savior for us during this pandemic, because more than half of our organization was working on virtual desktops, and they actually had the capability to work virtually from anywhere. And beside that, we also started giving laptops to everybody, and that everything happened before pandemic, and we did not have much of a reliance where people actually had to be present physically, except few client projects. And there also we could see some of the myths were broken, and how some of the processes can be changed without compromising the data and obviously all the compliances around. But the good thing, what we saw, that some of the things which we used to take as maybe non-negotiable, or maybe we were not able to change those things also changed, and it's all the mindset. And and overall, I think from a technology point of view, it was, as I said, it was a proactive step where we actually moved most of the workloads on the cloud. And from a digital transformation perspective, when you have most of your critical applications, your workloads running outside your data center, where people don't have to physically connect to your offices or come to office in order to access it, you actually already work on policies and processes where you can access your data securely from anywhere on any device. And that's what we were actually working on. For us, it was not something very challenging. But what I see, and what maybe the advice I've shared with some of my CXO friends also, that it is very important you to start figuring out, if you have not done that so far, to see what are those critical information assets you have, which you want people to access irrespective of where they are. And obviously there are certain challenges from industry to industry. What we are able to do in our industry may not be true for maybe some of the, maybe let's say automotive, or maybe manufacturing, or retail, or in some of the other sectors. But whatever we can do in our own industry to reduce that impact, or basically for survival, when these things happened, when first lockdown happened, I think everybody was trying to figure out, and I could see a sort of panic call during that time, when everybody was looking for laptops, everybody was looking for some sort of an access, everybody was looking for increase in number of licenses, either for collaboration tools or VPN. I mean, all those kind of things happen. And it was, as I said, it was the first 6 months were reactive. There was no planning. It was more of a reactive call. People have realized that they need to actually be prepared to deal with such incidents. And this thing obviously is still going on. Probably maybe it will take maybe another 6 months or maybe more. But people have to obviously sail through these times, and they also need to be prepared for something like that in future. Whether this thing happened again after 100 years or maybe 10 years, we don't know. But at least we all now have a mindset that how to deal with something unpredictable, which can happen at any time during our lifetime.
Yeah. Thank you. You're right. I mean, we do have to be prepared, and it has taught us a lot of important lessons. In fact, the first pandemic wave forced a remote work culture upon us, and its resurgence, has actually further strengthened our processes and technologies for the same. Like you mentioned, first 6 months were unpredictable, but then later things kind of got into shape, and we definitely don't hope, to see any subsequent waves, and we hope that the things get back to normal, but you never know. But the thing is that, do you think that this remote work culture will remain, or things will go back as they were before the pandemic?
I think remote work culture is here to stay. Obviously, scales will keep on changing depending on the situation we are in. And as I said, the pre-pandemic days, we were like 10 to 15% remote all the time. And the rest of the people were working from offices. And as we probably gradually recover, uh, people will obviously return to office. But what I'm assuming, I think globally, wherever possible, I think people have realized that remote working is feasible. It's equally productive, and they can actually get people to work from anywhere. And the one thing what I've seen across many industries, that people are able to hire talent from locations where they were not going before, and remote working has made it possible. Even the folks we had an office who were living in, let's say, even if we let's say talk about our India office, the people who are staying in Delhi NCR, they moved back to their hometowns, and you don't know where they're working from. Most of the people, whether they are working from maybe Delhi NCR or Mumbai or maybe somewhere in South or East, you don't know. And that's where I think you look at the opportunity to hire talent from locations where you were not going before, and probably there are a good set of people you can have on board. Uh, in my view, that remote working is going to stay. I think scale will also be significant, at least for next couple of years. And a lot of organizations and industries, I think, going to take the advantage of this, where they can actually do a sort of a balance in operational cost. And they probably maybe not need a big amount of real estate, and they can probably maybe run uh, in a sort of a mobile office where if somebody wants to come to office for a few days, they can come, they can have a seat allocated to them dynamically, and that's what I think will keep on happening. And projects where you have to be in office, because there are always some projects. We also deal with some of these projects which are very, very critical and very, very sensitive. You obviously need people in office. So I think it will be a mix of those people, and some industries obviously who cannot do much with remote working, they will, with the time as it allows, I think they will return to office. But remote working is going to stay, and I think what everybody has learned during this pandemic, that learning is also going to stay with us, and even if people return to office, I think some of these learnings will actually help explore a lot of other uh, areas where you can improve the productivity, and you can probably maybe look for some innovations. I think these things will definitely help.
Yeah, thanks, Sachin. I think good points, that you've shared. While remote working is definitely here to stay, one good learning that you said was about being able to find talent now, remotely, looking beyond what you would normally looking. So that's a great learning that you really suggested. But yeah, and you did share some other learnings also. But just as a parting question, to understand some other important lessons or pointers that you would like to give to our viewers for enabling a digital collaboration to keep the business running. So if there are some more learnings, maybe you could share them as your concluding thoughts.
Sure. I think one thing what everybody has realized, and I'll probably maybe just add maybe a few lines to it. I think it is very important to be ready to deal with such eventualities and such disruption, where obviously scale can be different, but such disruptions can always create some challenges in front of us, and it's always good to be proactive, where the planning and execution has been done, so that when something hits you, you know that you are ready to deal with it. And in some cases, obviously, maybe I'll say maybe some industries and some organizations are blessed to have budgets to be proactive, and obviously there are some organizations who are struggling, and maybe despite their CXOs telling those challenges internally, they were not able to go through it. And some people always had that mind that historically, has it happened? No, then just move on. And I think everybody, in fact, look at historical events. Now they have this large scale event sitting in front of them. And these, I think some of these events will put that urgency in everybody's mind that this is not something which they can ignore. And especially when they talk about digital transformation or even collaboration, I think people have realized that these things are important and best not to be ignored. And that's where they need to invest in order to survive. And people who were ready or who were quick enough to deal with some of these scenarios, I think they actually did better. And even I know organizations who were struggling for first 6 months, and then they actually did very good. And even the balance sheets, if you look at it, it was telling you that success story, that what was the story during first 6 months and how they recovered more than expected in the next 6 months. I mean, it's all about that mindset, preparedness, and how quickly you can adopt to not only just to look at the services and products you provide, but how do you get people in a collaborative way to actually work on these things. And it's, as I said, it's all about all the technologies you buy, all the processes you invest in, and how ready you are as an organization, not just maybe just the leadership, but even the people who are actually ready to adopt some of these challenges and changes.
Well, thank you, Sachin. I mean, it was really great talking to you. Thank you for sharing all those insights. It was indeed very interesting to listen to some of your views and some of the advice that you gave. Well, that is all for today, and we hope that all you enjoyed watching this episode of CXO Cafe and found the interaction interesting and useful. We'll be back again soon with more interesting chats around other aspects of digital collaboration. So stay tuned. Till then, goodbye, stay safe and healthy, and keep watching CXO Cafe. Thank you so much.